Hello everyone, my name is Evie Lupine. Welcome back to my channel, and today I have another video for you all. Today I'd like to discuss risk profiles as it relates to my content and to me here on YouTube. Now, if this is your first time watching, this might not be the best video to start out with, but hopefully you learned something interesting. If you're somebody who regularly watches my content, you probably know that I recently posted a video where I discuss risk profiles and boundaries as they relate to negotiation and to BDSM. And I think that the concepts behind establishing a risk profile are things that you can use beyond just in kink. They are things that you can use in general when you're thinking about your interactions and how you conduct yourself online. And especially as somebody who focuses on making content online, I have to constantly think about this. I have to constantly think about what I'm posting, why I'm posting it, who I'm interacting with. And what I'd like to discuss today is why I might not feel comfortable posting certain kinds of content, or why I don't do certain things on certain platforms, and hopefully just come to a mutual understanding about what to expect from my channel and where I'm going to be putting certain kinds of content if I want to post it at all. And the reason I want to discuss this is because recently I did a story over on my Instagram page where I discussed what do people want to see more from me in the new year. And I got a lot of really great feedback about that. I know people want to see more makeup and travel and things with Mr. Tex, and I totally agree with all of those, and I will definitely be doing more of that this year if everything goes to plan, so stay tuned. But I also got a lot of suggestions on things that I know I've talked about that I'm not comfortable discussing or that I'm not comfortable posting about in a public way, and I really just want to make sure that everybody has a full understanding of what I am comfortable doing, what kind of content they can expect from my channel, and where certain things are going to go. Because I don't want anybody to be disappointed. I don't want people to feel like I'm ignoring suggestions or that I can't take criticism, because I don't think that's true. My intent is really to maintain a personal relationship with the people who watch my videos, with the people who interact with me, because I really enjoy that. I enjoy being able to interact with people. I enjoy being able to do requests and suggestions and be able to kind of just have a better understanding of what people want to see from my channel. I think a lot of us are here for a very specific thing and are expecting a specific type of content, and I want to make sure I am staying true to the kind of content that I feel comfortable making and the things that people are curious and want to learn more about. So let's talk about YouTube and risk and the state of content on YouTube in general. So I don't know how many people who are watching this really keep up with the everyday goings on of YouTube drama, but the past 2 years, especially the last like 6 months, have been absolutely crazy for content on YouTube. Nobody knows what the rules are. Everybody seems to be held to a different standard. YouTube doesn't really have a lot of great guidelines, and they especially seem to be doing things and experimenting with stuff without actually letting anybody know. So one really big example of this is when I search for myself or for What's a Safe Word or for Brittany Simon or look for specific BDSM terms, YouTube has just decided that we're not allowed to have thumbnails. And this doesn't seem to be happening for everybody, but it does seem to be happening for a lot of searches. And YouTube will just replace it with like a random thumbnail that an algorithm picked as being like the best thing to pick out of the video for the thumbnail, and it's harder to reach people that way. And I mean, I don't mean to like complain about like it's like hurting my ability to reach people, because that's not really the point of this conversation, but it is something that demonstrates that YouTube is willing to just change things and not even really tell people what to expect from those changes. Like I said, YouTubers don't even really know what the rules are for content. Like, you know, there are things that you think YouTube wouldn't be okay with that giant content creators can get away with for years, and things that appear to have been okay for a very, very long time suddenly just get entirely deleted. A really good example of this that has happened within the BDSM realm, specifically on YouTube, is with rope bondage tutorials. There's probably at least half a dozen people who post some sort of rope-related content on YouTube. Some of the channels are still active, some aren't. And there are two in particular that I know of that I used to watch on YouTube that I was subscribed to that suddenly just disappeared. Their videos weren't there anymore. The they were either there, but they were empty, or they weren't there at all. It was really, really weird. And because these channels don't have a social media presence, I wasn't really able to reach out and find out, like, did you guys delete your channel? Like, did YouTube do this? But I highly suspect YouTube actually deleted those channels for the kind of content they were posting. And the reason for that is actually linked to another issue where YouTube was deleting channels of a certain genre. And that was with weed tubers, people who post about marijuana. And that is totally not my realm at all. I don't know anything about that. Personally, I don't really watch that content. But basically one day YouTube just decided that a couple of specific channels that were posting this content for seemingly arbitrary reasons were no longer allowed to exist on YouTube, and their channels were just blank, or a lot of videos were deleted, and it was really weird. And it wasn't like YouTube had some clear policy where they were like, you are not allowed to discuss drugs that are recreationally legal where you live but still illegal federally in the United States. Like, that's not something that was ever spelled out. And so on YouTube, it's just really, really hard to know what is actually okay to post or not, what is going to put your channel in jeopardy, what is going to get the attention of YouTube moderators in a negative way. And this is not even getting into monetization issues, because I personally have never tried to monetize my content on YouTube. I will never try to do that because it would be kind of a fruitless endeavor, it would be frustrating, but I also don't want to put a money wall or a Lexus ad or a Walmart commercial before a 20-minute video where I discuss how to negotiate with a partner. That's not something I want to do. But it is something where it's so hard to know what is going to be okay on YouTube from day to day. And what I don't want to do is post content on YouTube that I have reasonably established through YouTube's patterns that would potentially cause issues for being able to continue to use YouTube as a platform. So for example, things like nudity. My good friend Brittany Simon, who is a nudist, has posted videos in the past, either in the bathtub or with implied nudity, never actually showing any intimate parts, but having implied nudity even on YouTube is a little too much, and she ended up getting some strikes for that, and it was a really difficult time, and I don't want to put myself in the same situation. And I find that BDSM demonstrations in particular kind of go into the same territory. The combination of rope channels getting deleted or getting wiped off of YouTube, also the implied nudity thing, because a lot of BDSM play is usually done at least partially clothed, if not fully unclothed. I just don't really want to take that risk with that kind of content. I don't feel comfortable having demonstrations publicly available in that way because of how it might make things look to the YouTube moderators. And besides that, I don't have control over who watches these videos. I can try really hard, I can put disclaimers on my videos, I can age restrict things so that way only 18+ accounts are able to watch it, but it doesn't stop everybody, because the age restriction thing is it's like a 6-inch tall fence. All you have to do to get around that is make a Gmail account that has an 18+ age associated with it, make a YouTube account with it, and boom, you're good to go, because it's not like YouTube is checking this against the social security number or something. There's no way to really verify the age of those accounts of the people using those accounts. And so that's something that happens. I don't know if a 12-year-old is going to see it. I don't know if a 9-year-old's going to see it. I can try my best to make sure that they don't see that content, but I can't prevent it entirely if it is on a public website like YouTube. Also, I have no control over what will go viral, and that is a big concern for me. I have a video that has about 500,000 views or so. It's a dungeon tour where I walked through the home dungeon in Mr. Tex's house and just kind of go over the equipment that we have and the play gear that we have. And if that were to happen on, say, an instructional needle play video or on a bondage tutorial, I don't really know how I would feel with that. I just don't think that I would be comfortable with it. I don't think that I would be okay with that kind of content reaching a mass audience of that level, and so I don't want to post that kind of content. And there's a few reasons for that. One is, again, I don't have control over who sees it, but I also don't want this to be something where it's a bunch of people who don't really know a lot about how to do BDSM or sort of best BDSM practices, seeing just that demo because it was suggested to them on YouTube through a YouTube algorithm, seeing only that video and then taking that information and then just running wild with it. I want to try and prevent that as much as possible. I want to encourage people to find additional resources, to practice, to find instructors, to find people who can help give them feedback real life directly when they are doing things. And on YouTube, I just don't have a way of doing that, even besides just like a disclaimer in the beginning of a video, and I really just don't feel like that's enough for me to feel comfortable posting that kind of content in a public way where I don't know who's watching it. This is not to say that I don't want to post that kind of content in general, I just don't want to do it on YouTube. So when it comes to doing things like more personal things, like, you know, going over what's in, you know, my toy box at home, demos or scene examples, those all go to Patreon. And there's a few reasons for that. One is I know everybody on Patreon is 18 plus because I have specific restrictions for that on my Patreon page. And I have a way to directly monitor everybody who's on there. It's a lot easier to block people, and there's no way that people can get access to my Patreon videos without going on Patreon, making an account, signing up, and putting a name exactly to the login to how you get to the videos so I can see who's watching what. Kind of a little bit more of a safety barrier for me in terms of that video's not going to go viral. I'm not going to get 500,000 vanilla people watching this video and misconstruing my information unless somebody somehow manages to steal the video and post it on YouTube themselves. I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that those things are directly in my control over who can watch them than I would when that's on YouTube. So that is why all of that content is over on Patreon when it comes to rope bondage tutorials, when it comes to demos, when it comes to anything involving any kind of implied nudity. That always goes on Patreon because I know it's a safe place that I can post things where I have the most direct information and control over who is accessing those videos, and I feel comfortable knowing that those are probably, unless something goes really wrong, you know, they're not going to be seen by like 1 million plus people. I don't have that, you know, same kind of anxiety that I do with like publicly posting a YouTube video where I don't have that same level of control. At the same time though, there are things that I don't feel comfortable posting in general or talking about in general. One of those things would be advice for high risk areas of play, so things like breath play, needle play, blood play, and I just don't feel qualified to discuss those things. Those are very high risk areas of play. I don't believe I am experienced enough on the top side to even get close to like a complete way of explaining how to do that in a manner where I would feel like I've done my job as an educator, because really a big part of this is also like my responsibility as an educator. I want to make sure that I'm giving everybody the best information possible, the most complete information possible, to make sure that people are engaging and they want to engage in safely. And I just don't feel like I have the expertise to talk about certain areas like blood play, breath play, knife play, etc. in any sort of detail, because it's not something that I personally have experience with as a top, and it is ideally something I believe you should be practicing with people in real life who can give you feedback, who can you know, really give you the direct personal advice that you need in order to succeed in those situations. So I don't feel comfortable discussing those areas. You know, if something makes me uncomfortable, if somebody makes a suggestion where I'm like, I'm not really going to be able to get into that, I'm not like offended or anything, like I'm not upset, I'm not mad. But at the same time, I just want to acknowledge that there are areas of BDSM that I am simply not going to be able to cover because of the nature of video. There's just things that you can't get across in video. There are things about types of play that you simply cannot, I believe, truly get across in just one-way video format, where I'm not able to have a dialogue and give feedback and like actually like physically be there in person. And so personally for me, those are some areas that I'm not going to be able to go into. The last thing that I want to discuss is like personal risk and going into personal details. I know a lot of people want to get to know me better, want to get to know my life better, want to have more access to intimate parts of my life, like the munches I go to, the parties I go to, dungeon tours, more actual scene demonstrations, seeing me in subspace or in pet space, and I frankly don't really feel comfortable bringing up a lot of that stuff, and I'm going to address these as two separate categories. So when it comes to showing locations of BDSM activities and spaces, so munches, dungeons, that kind of thing, I would feel comfortable doing that if I were doing it when I was, say, traveling. And I had advance permission from the place that I was going to, obviously, because I don't want to out anybody. I don't want to expose anything that's not publicly available. And that is always my priority when it comes to these things, are the safety and security of the people involved and the people who go to those spaces and the spaces themselves. I will talk about things like big events and, big conventions, because those things have publicly available and publicly posted addresses. But if I'm going into something where, it's an invite only on FetLife and the person has to direct message you and you must be RSVP'd in order to get the address, I don't feel comfortable even showing a video of that space, because it is very easy, like weirdly easy, to determine where something is actually located by like weird things in the background. Like there was a whole thing where something that Shia LaBeouf had done, like his exact location was determined by like a flagpole that was in the background of his video, and I just worry that somebody with the wrong intentions or just in general, like somebody would be able to find out way more personal information than I was comfortable with if I were to do that in the exact area where I live. And I just don't want to have that information out there, because at least where I live, things like munches and dungeons, the addresses are not publicly posted. It's something where you have to get an invite or get direct messaged by the organizers in order to find out. And I don't want it to be a situation where, I post a video of my local munch and suddenly it goes viral and it has 1 million views, and the munch kind of gets ruined because suddenly it ends up being a tourist destination for people who saw the freaks on YouTube and want to talk to the freaks about BDSM. And that's sort of like a paranoid worst case scenario, but I do have to think about that because I don't think it's that far away of a possibility, especially considering that I have posted videos before of my own personal dungeon space where it's something that a lot of people are really interested in, and I just worry that people who see it as like a novelty, or people who aren't invested in a lifestyle, like, oh, that sounds cool, let's go there, let's go hang out, and then suddenly it's no longer a space for kink people, it's a space for looky-loos and for people who want to see the freaks to come and hang out, and I just really, really don't want that to happen. And I also, again, I want to preserve people's privacy. I find it really difficult to envision a scenario where I'm able to post a full tour of a complete dungeon without somehow giving clues as to its exact location in some way. So I just don't really feel comfortable doing that, unless maybe I was traveling and it was a large, nationally known thing and I had advance permission from the dungeon owners and they were comfortable with that, or if the information was already publicly available. That would be one situation, but that's just what I feel about going into details about things like munches and dungeons where I live, is I don't want to expose that kind of personal information. And the last thing that I want to discuss is about my subspace and sharing actual scenes. And I'm really the most worried about this section, which is probably why I saved it until the end. And I didn't script this. I'm probably going to forget some of my reasonings behind this. But basically, scenes are a really intimate experience for me, and I have done demonstrations. I have done things where I'm like, here's how I use a flogger, here's what needle play looks like, and I'm comfortable doing that on Patreon and having those things. But a demo to me is very different from showing an actual scene, because when I'm doing a demo and it's for the explicit purpose of showing people kind of what something looks like, that is different from showing actual intimate activity. And I would like to have and maintain some kind of personal boundary when it comes to kinds of intimacy that I choose to show online or not, simply for my own comfort, because I am not an exhibitionist. It feels kind of weird to me, or it would feel weird to me if I had an actual full-on scene just posted to Patreon. And so that's why I set it up as demos, and I try to make it really clear that this is not necessarily a full-on complete scene. This is for demonstration purposes only, like how you would see at a dungeon when you're going to a class. That is one thing, but showing an actual full-on scene is another. And frankly, I don't really think I could get into a full good scene space if I knew there was a camera on me and I knew people were going to comment on it who had not been there. And it's really hard, especially when you're somebody who's making your own stuff, to like have a camera set up and think about the things that you want to say, make sure that you're looking pretty, and like focus on all of these external things rather than focusing on the scene itself. And I don't want to do scenes just for other people to consume them, because that does not really align with me personally on why I want to do BDSM. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to know more about what BDSM really looks like, or wanting to know more about like what it is like to do a scene, or how we interact, Mr. Tex and I as a couple. Like, I don't think any of that is inherently bad, but it is not something that particularly is something I'm comfortable with. It just feels like it's too intimate. I worry too much about how it would come across. I don't think it would be something that I would personally enjoy doing. And I think, as a content creator, I want to make things that I'm proud of. I want to make things that I felt came out in a way that is what I wanted to do, and I just don't think I can do that with showing a full-on scene. And that is even, without people and the requests of like, I want to see you in subspace, I want to see you in like pet space. Like, that is not happening if a camera is on. Like, I can't do it. This right here, this is business time for me. I am giving information. I am a responsible adult. I am in YouTube mode. I am in business mode when the camera is on. And I can't do that and do pet space at the same time. I can't do that and do subspace at the same time, because I'm thinking about the camera. I'm thinking about what's being recorded, what's going to be edited, how is the sound, is there echo, is there road noise. I'm thinking about too many external things in order to produce good content to get into the headspace that people want to see. And I just feel like it would kind of be almost like a lie if I tried to do that. Like, it would just be like, I would just feel like I'd have to fake it. And I don't want to make content where I'm faking it, because you guys want to see this because it's real. You guys want to see this because it's how actual BDSM people do their lives. And the way that I can get that across is not through showing scenes, is not through showing my, personal subspace. I can do that with demonstrations and story times and explanations. There are ways I think I can get that same kind of information across that doesn't necessarily have to go into the personal territory of showing an actual like scene that I'm doing with one of my partners. Like, I just don't think I can really do that. Anyways, I hope that some of this made sense. Hopefully you guys kind of have a better understanding of what I want to post on YouTube and what you can expect from me in the future. I want to post more of what you guys want to see. That is a big goal for me this year, as I want to be able to make more content, but there is still going to be a lot of content that is Patreon only. If you guys do want to see like a lot of more intimate toy reviews, if you want to see things like demonstrations, if you want instructional videos, those exist. They are, however, all over on Patreon. If you want to see more things with like pet play and pet space, if you want to see me in my gear, if you want to see things, playing with toys and doing more pet play focused things, I have several videos of that on Patreon as well. But again, there are certain things that I just don't feel comfortable discussing. I don't feel comfortable giving personal advice for certain high-risk BDSM activities, and I just hope that you guys are able to understand that and respect that as a content creator. Part of me being a responsible educator is understanding where my own boundaries are for the things that I feel like I am able to discuss in an appropriately informed way to make sure that you are appropriately informed. And so things like blood play, knife play, needle play, breath play, bondage, a lot of those things either don't feel comfortable talking about under any circumstances, or can only discuss in really limited capacities with like a lot of disclaimers and caveats and such. I am happy to give one-on-one advice. I'm happy to talk to you about your BDSM experiences and hopefully get to know you guys a little bit better, but public YouTube videos, social media posts, those are not necessarily going to be the way that happens. That is going to be through Patreon. That is going to be through my own personal avenues where I know that I have control over the content and that I am doing the best I can to engage in BDSM education in an ethical way. Anyways, again, I really hope you guys understand this. I really hope that I am getting my point across in this video. If there's anything that you're confused about, if there's anything you're still wondering about, please let me know. I really just don't want to cause more confusion. I really just want to help people understand rather than cause misunderstanding. So let me know if you do have any comments or questions down in the comment section below. If you like this video and you haven't already, please do subscribe. I make videos twice a week, and I promise they're usually not this personal. They're usually more education focused. And if you really like this video and you want to get access to all that exclusive content, the photo shoots, the demos, the tutorials, all of that great stuff, you can do that over on Patreon. That is what makes this channel possible. And if you do already support me, thank you so much. And until I see you guys next time, hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.